The Galactic Concord Station was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known universe. It floated in the darkness of space like a city made of light and metal. Thousands of ships came and went every day. Millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds walked its corridors. This was where the galaxy made its decisions. This was where empires rose and fell with the stroke of a pen. On this particular day, a small human ship docked at one of the lesser ports. It was not an impressive vessel. Compared to the massive warships of the Valeth Dominion or the elegant cruisers of the Kaireshi Federation, it looked like a child's toy. The airlock opened, and Ambassador Marcus Cole stepped onto the station for the first time. He was not what anyone expected. The aliens who bothered to look saw a human male in his mid-50s. His hair was gray at the temples. His face was lined with age. He wore a simple dark suit that fit him well but was not fancy. He carried no weapons that anyone could see. He walked with a calm, steady pace that suggested he was in no hurry to be anywhere. A group of Valeth warriors stood nearby, watching the new arrival. They were tall, reptilian creatures with scales the color of dried blood. Their eyes were yellow and cold. One of them made a noise that might have been laughter. "This is the human ambassador," he said to his companions. "This old creature? The humans send us their grandfather?" The others laughed. Marcus Cole walked past them without a word. His expression did not change. He did not even look at them. The Valeth Dominion had ruled 100 worlds for 10,000 years. They were proud. They were powerful. They did not think much of humans. After all, humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. In galactic terms, they were infants. Children who had just learned to walk, trying to sit at the table with adults. Marcus made his way through the station toward the diplomatic quarter. He moved through the crowds of aliens with an easy grace that few noticed. His eyes were always moving, always watching. He never walked with his back to an open doorway. He always knew where the exits were. These were small things. Habits. The kind of habits a man develops over many years in a certain kind of work. A young Kaireshi female watched him pass. The Kaireshi were a bird-like species with bright feathers and sharp minds. This particular Kaireshi was named Vela, and she worked for her government's intelligence service. It was her job to watch new arrivals, to notice things that others missed. She noticed the way Marcus Cole moved. She noticed the way he seemed to see everything without appearing to look at anything. She noticed that despite his age and his plain appearance, there was something about him that made her feathers lie flat against her body. She made a note to look into this human more closely. The welcome reception was held that evening in the grand hall of the station. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive room. Crystal chandeliers floated in the air, held up by gravity fields. Food and drink from 1,000 worlds covered the tables. Music played from hidden speakers. Marcus Cole stood alone near one wall, holding a glass of water. He had been introduced to dozens of aliens, and each one had dismissed him after a few moments of polite conversation. That was fine. He was used to being underestimated. He preferred it. Lord Sithrak entered the hall with a group of Valeth nobles. He was the high delegate of the Valeth Dominion, and he moved like he owned the room. Perhaps he did. The Valeth had been pushing hard for a new resolution that would classify humanity as a protectorate species. This would mean humans could not vote in the council. They would have no voice in galactic affairs. They would exist only at the pleasure of more powerful species. Sithrak saw Marcus and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. He walked over, and the crowd parted before him. His followers came with him, forming a half circle around the human ambassador. "Ambassador Cole," Sithrak said, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I have been looking forward to meeting you. Tell me, how does it feel to represent such a young and primitive people?" Marcus took a sip of his water. "It feels like an honor, Lord Sithrak." "An honor?" Sithrak laughed. "Your species still dies of old age. You cannot even fix your own bodies. What honor is there in representing creatures who live such short, meaningless lives?" "Every life has meaning," Marcus said quietly. "Long or short." Sithrak stepped closer. A servant was carrying a tray of ceremonial wine. Sithrak took a glass and, with a deliberate motion, poured it down the front of Marcus's suit. The red liquid spread across the dark fabric like blood. The hall went silent. Every eye turned to watch. "Oh dear," Sithrak said, his voice dripping with false concern. "How clumsy of me. But then, I suppose it does not matter. Humans are used to being beneath other species. You are like pets who have learned to speak. Amusing, but not important. Marcus looked down at his ruined suit. Then he looked up at Sithrak. His expression had not changed. There was no anger in his eyes, no shame, nothing at all. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small cloth. Calmly, he began to dab at the stain. "I have had worse stains," he said. Something flickered in Sithrak's eyes. He had expected anger. He had expected fear. He had expected something he could use against the human. Instead, he got nothing. "Enjoy your evening, Ambassador," Sithrak said, turning away. "Enjoy it while you can. After tomorrow's vote, your species will learn its true place in this galaxy." He walked away, his followers laughing and congratulating him on his performance. Marcus watched him go. Then he finished cleaning his suit as best he could and returned to his water. From across the room, Vela the Karishi intelligence officer watched everything. She had seen many diplomats humiliated in her career. Some responded with anger, some with tears, some with empty threats. None had ever responded with such complete calm. That night, she sat in her small office and accessed her government's intelligence database. She searched for everything she could find on Marcus Cole. Most of his file was redacted. Entire sections were simply blank. What little information remained raised more questions than it answered. There were references to something called Project Terminus. There were mentions of a 30-year career that officially did not exist. There were codes and clearance levels that Vela had never seen before. At the bottom of the file, there was a single note from a human intelligence official. It read, "In the event of Ambassador Cole's death, implement Protocol Omega immediately. Do not attempt recovery. Do not attempt negotiation. Just run." Vela stared at the screen for a long time. "What are the humans hiding?" she whispered to herself. In his quarters, Marcus Cole removed his stained suit and hung it carefully in the closet. He stood by the window and looked out at the stars. His hands were steady. His breathing was calm. He thought about Lord Sithrak and the vote that would happen tomorrow. He thought about the 43 members of his diplomatic staff sleeping on the human ship. Good people. Young people. People who believed that the galaxy could be a place of peace and cooperation. He hoped they were right. He hoped he would not have to show the galaxy what he really was. Marcus Cole had spent 30 years being humanity's quiet knife. He had done things that would never appear in any history book. He had ended threats before they could begin. He had been designed for a single purpose, to be the last resort when all other options failed. His creators had called him insurance. His enemies had called him myth. He preferred to be neither. He preferred to be a diplomat. But as he watched the stars, he knew that some things could not be solved with words. Some enemies only understood one language. And Marcus Cole spoke that language better than anyone alive. The council chamber was shaped like an enormous bowl. Thousands of seats rose up in circles around a central platform where speakers addressed the assembly. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to witness the vote on humanity's future. Marcus Cole stood on the speaker's platform. He looked small against the vast chamber. His voice was calm and measured as he made his final argument. "Humanity asks only for the chance to prove itself," he said. "We are young, yes. We have much to learn. But we come to this council with open hands and open hearts. We wish to be partners, not subjects. We wish to contribute, not to be controlled." He paused and looked around the chamber. Thousands of alien faces looked back at him. Most showed boredom. Some showed contempt. "Give us time," Marcus said. "That is all we ask. Time to show you what humanity can become." He stepped down from the platform. The vote began. It did not take long. Species after species voted against humanity. The Valeth and their allies were well prepared. When the final count came, it was not even close. Humanity would be classified as a protectorate species. For the next 100 years, they would be supervised by the Valeth Dominion. They would have no vote, no voice, no power. Lord Sithrak rose from his seat with a smile that showed all his teeth. "The council has spoken," he announced. "The humans will learn their place, and I personally will ensure they never forget it." Marcus accepted the ruling with a slight bow. His face showed nothing. After the session ended, he approached Lord Sithrak. "My lord," Marcus said, "I would request a private meeting to discuss the terms of our new arrangement. Perhaps we can find ways to make this transition smooth for both our peoples." Sithrak looked at the human with amusement. "You wish to negotiate? After you have already lost?" "I wish to talk," Marcus said. Nothing more. Sithrak considered this. A private meeting would give him another chance to humiliate the human. Perhaps he could even provoke an incident that would justify harsher measures against humanity. Very well, Sithrak said. Meet me in the diplomatic wing in 1 hour. Corridor 7. We will talk. Marcus nodded and walked away. 1 hour later, Marcus Cole walked down Corridor 7. It was an isolated section of the station, far from the main traffic areas. The lighting was dim. The walls were plain metal. There were no windows. 6 Valith warriors waited for him. They were not diplomats. They were soldiers. Each one stood over 2 meters tall. Their scales were thick enough to stop most weapons. Their claws could tear through steel. They had been chosen specifically for this task. Lord Sithrak had given them simple instructions. The human would attack first. They would defend themselves. Unfortunately, the fragile human would not survive the encounter. A tragic accident. Nothing more. Marcus stopped when he saw them blocking the corridor. He looked at each one in turn. Then he looked past them, as if searching for someone else. I was told Lord Sithrak would be here, he said. The lead warrior stepped forward. Lord Sithrak sends his regrets. He asked us to deliver a message. And what message is that? The warrior smiled. That humans need to learn respect. The 6 warriors spread out, surrounding Marcus. There was no escape. The corridor behind him was sealed. The corridor ahead was blocked. Marcus sighed. It was a small sound, almost sad. Gentlemen, he said, I am going to ask you once to reconsider. The warriors laughed. The sound echoed off the metal walls. The human wants us to reconsider, the leader said. How amusing. Perhaps we should let him go. Perhaps we should apologize for frightening him. More laughter. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand. I want you to know that I gave you a chance. He moved. What happened next was not a fight. A fight implies 2 sides with some chance of victory. This was something else entirely. The first warrior lunged forward with his claws extended. Marcus stepped to the side and caught the warrior's arm. There was a snapping sound, and the warrior screamed as his elbow bent the wrong way. Before he could fall, Marcus spun him around and threw him into the second warrior. Both went down in a tangle of limbs. The third warrior swung a massive fist at Marcus's head. Marcus ducked under it and drove his palm into the warrior's throat. The warrior made a choking sound and collapsed, unable to breathe. 4 seconds had passed. The 4th and 5th warriors attacked together. Marcus caught one by the wrist, twisted, and used the warrior's own momentum to throw him into the wall. The impact left a dent in the metal. The 5th warrior tried to grab Marcus from behind. Marcus dropped low, swept the warrior's legs, and was already moving before the body hit the floor. 8 seconds. The 6th warrior, the leader, backed away. His eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. Fear. What are you? He whispered. Marcus walked toward him. There was no hurry in his movements, no anger, just terrible, absolute certainty. The warrior drew his ceremonial blade. It was a weapon that had been in his family for generations. He had trained with it since childhood. He had killed with it many times. He thrust at Marcus's heart. Marcus was not there. He was beside the warrior, then behind him. The blade was no longer in the warrior's hand. It was embedded in the warrior's shoulder armor, pinning him to the wall. 11 seconds, 6 warriors, all down. Marcus straightened his suit. There was a small tear in one sleeve. He frowned at it slightly. The pinned warrior stared at him with pure terror. Tell your lord I will be expecting an apology, Marcus said. His voice was calm, pleasant even, formal, written, by morning. He walked away without looking back. Station security arrived minutes later. They found the scene and could not understand what they were seeing. 6 of the Valith's best warriors, defeated by one elderly human. It seemed impossible. They took Marcus to the security office for questioning. Medical teams attended to the warriors. The doctors ran scans and became very quiet when they saw the results. Meanwhile, Vela, the Kirishi intelligence officer, watched the security footage from a hidden terminal. She played it back again and again, slowing it down, studying every movement. Then she ran a medical scan on Marcus Cole. The results made no sense. His bone density was 3 times normal. His reflexes operated at speeds that should not be possible for any biological creature. And there was something else in his bloodstream. Millions of tiny machines, too small to see with the naked eye. Nanomachines, working constantly to repair and enhance his body. Marcus Cole was not a normal human. He was not even close. Vela dug deeper into the classified files. She used every trick she knew to break through the encryption. Piece by piece, the truth emerged. Project Terminus had been a human military program, started 40 years ago. Its purpose was simple: to create the perfect soldier, the perfect weapon. Someone who could go anywhere, do anything, and survive any opposition. 12 volunteers had undergone the procedure. Only one survived: Marcus Cole. His official designation within Human Black Operations was Reaper 1. Vela found a list of his missions: 47 verified operations, 16 planetary conflicts ended before they could begin. 3 hostile species' entire leadership structures had been dismantled by one man, working alone. Vela leaned back in her chair. Her feathers were pressed flat against her body. Her hearts were beating too fast. "What have the Vileth done?" she whispered. At that moment, Lord Sithrak received word of what had happened. His warriors had failed. The humans still lived. And now the entire station was asking questions. Sithrak's rage was terrible to behold. He smashed furniture. He screamed at his advisors. He demanded solutions. One advisor stepped forward nervously. "My lord, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. This human is more dangerous than we—" Sithrak grabbed him by the throat. "One human? You want me to fear one human?" He threw the advisor across the room. "No. If one human cannot be killed quietly, then we will send a louder message." He turned to his military commander. "Contact the fleet. Order them to target the human diplomatic vessel. All hands aboard." The commander hesitated. "My lord, that would be an act of war." "Against what?" Sithrak laughed. "Against a protectorate species? We have every right to discipline them. Do it, now." The commander bowed and left to carry out the order. In his quarters, Marcus Cole was looking out the window at the stars when his communication device buzzed. It was a message from the human ship. "Ambassador, we're detecting weapons locks from multiple Veleth vessels. What should we do?" Marcus closed his eyes. He thought of Sarah Chen, his young aide who had shown him pictures of her newborn son just that morning. He thought of the 42 other staff members on that ship. Good people. Innocent people. "Get everyone to the escape pods," he said. "Now!" He was too late. The Veleth opened fire. Through the window, Marcus watched the human ship come apart in a ball of flame. 43 lives ended in an instant. 43 people who had done nothing wrong. 43 people who had believed in peace. Marcus stood very still for a long time. When he finally moved, something had changed in his eyes. Something cold. Something old. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. Death had woken up. The wreckage of the human diplomatic vessel drifted in the cold darkness of space. Small fires still burned where oxygen leaked from broken sections. Bodies floated among the debris. Emergency lights flickered red and then went dark. Marcus Cole stood in what remained of the main corridor. He had arrived in a small shuttle just minutes after the attack. The station's emergency teams had not even reached the scene yet. He was alone with the dead. His feet made no sound as he walked through the destruction. Glass crunched beneath his shoes. Sparks fell from broken wires. The smell of burned metal filled the air. He found Sarah Chen's body near her office. She had been trying to reach the escape pods when the hull breach caught her. She still held her personal tablet in her hand. On the screen, frozen in time, was a picture of her baby son. She had been looking at it when she died. Marcus knelt beside her. He reached out and gently closed her eyes. Then he took the diplomatic badge from her jacket. It was cracked and stained with blood. For a long moment, he simply knelt there. His hands began to tremble. Not from fear, not from cold, from something much older and much darker. Sarah had been 24 years old. She had joined the diplomatic service because she believed in peace. She had believed that different species could learn to understand each other. She had believed that words were stronger than weapons. Marcus had spent his whole life hoping she was right. Now she was dead, and 42 others with her. He stood up slowly. He put Sarah's badge in his pocket, next to his heart. When he walked back to his shuttle, his hands were no longer trembling. They were perfectly still. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. But Marcus quickly learned that the meeting was not about punishing the Veleth. It was about punishing humanity. The human ambassador attacked Veleth guards without provocation, Lord Sithrak declared to the assembly. This proves what we have always known. Humans are violent. Humans are dangerous. They cannot be trusted. He held up a document. I move that humanity be declared a hostile species. All human vessels will be expelled from Concord space. All human assets will be seized. They will not be welcomed here until they learn proper respect. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Few species wanted to argue with the Vileth. Fewer still cared about humanity's fate. Marcus walked into the chamber. Every eye turned to watch him. He was still wearing the same suit from the day before. The tear in his sleeve had not been repaired, and everyone could see the bloodstains that marked the dark fabric. It was not his blood. He walked to the speaker's platform without waiting for permission. Sithrak started to object, but something in the human's eyes made the words die in his throat. Marcus stood at the center of the great chamber. Thousands of aliens looked down at him. He looked back without fear. I request permission to address the council, he said. His voice was quiet, but somehow filled the entire space. The council president, an ancient being from a species so old they had forgotten their own name, nodded slowly. You may speak, Ambassador Cole. Thank you. Marcus was silent for a moment. He looked at the faces around him. He looked at Lord Sithrak. He looked at the empty seats where the human delegation should have been sitting. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost gentle. For 30 years, I have served humanity as its quiet knife. I have ended wars before they began. I have removed threats to human life with precision and care. I was designed to be the last resort, the thing that comes when all other options have failed. He paused. The chamber was completely silent. My creators called me insurance. My enemies called me myth. I preferred to be neither. I preferred to be a diplomat, to believe that words could build what violence only destroys. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Sarah's badge. He held it up so everyone could see the blood that stained it. 43 people died on that ship. They were not soldiers. They were not warriors. They were dreamers. They came here offering friendship. They came here believing that the galaxy could be better than it is. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow everyone could hear. You killed them. You killed 43 people who believed in you. Lord Sithrak stood up. This is outrageous. The council will not be lectured by a... Sit down. 2 words, spoken softly. But Sithrak sat as if his legs had been cut from under him. He did not know why. He did not understand the force that made him obey. He only knew that in that moment, he could not have remained standing if his life depended on it. Marcus continued. I am going to give this council 1 solar cycle, 24 standard hours. In that time, you will deliver Lord Sithrak to human custody to face justice for the murder of 43 innocent people. You will also reverse your decision on humanity's status. We will be granted full membership with full rights. The council president leaned forward. And if we refuse? Marcus looked up at him. Then I will stop being a diplomat. Laughter broke out across the chamber. Nervous, disbelieving laughter. 1 human threatening the entire Galactic Council? It was absurd. Lord Sithrak found his voice again. You dare threaten us? 1 pathetic human against the combined might of 100 species? Guards, arrest this creature. Execute him for his insolence. The Vileth guards in the chamber moved toward Marcus. There were dozens of them. They were armed with plasma weapons and ceremonial blades. Marcus did not move. He did not raise his hands. He did not reach for a weapon. He simply smiled. It was a cold smile, a terrible smile. The kind of smile that belonged on a skull, not a living face. The guards stopped. They did not know why. Their training told them to continue. Their instincts screamed at them to run. 1 solar cycle, Marcus said. Use it wisely. He walked toward the chamber doors. The guards parted before him like water. No one tried to stop him. No one could explain why. After he was gone, Lord Sithrak erupted in fury. He demanded that Marcus be hunted down and killed. He ordered his fleet to blockade the station. He promised terrible revenge on anyone who helped the human. But in quieter corners of the station, others were having very different conversations. Vela, the Kireshi intelligence officer, had finished decrypting the Project Terminus files. What she found made her blood run cold. She rushed to find her ambassador, a wise old Kireshi named Talon. She showed him everything, the files, the mission reports, the list of eliminated threats. Talon read it all in silence. When he finished, his feathers had turned pale. 1 man did all this? He asked. Yes, Ambassador. Alone? Yes. Talon looked at the data again. He saw the names of species that had once threatened galactic peace, species that no longer existed, species that had been erased so completely that most younger races had never heard of them. "How do we contact the humans?" he asked. "I do not know, Ambassador." Talon closed his eyes. "Then we must find a way. We must find a way to end this before it begins." "Why?" Vela asked. "Surely the Valeth fleet can stop one human." Talon shook his head. "Child, I have lived a long time. I have seen many terrible things. But I have never seen anything like what is in these files." He pointed to the screen. "This man ended a war between the Draxian Empire and the Moleth Collective. Alone. In 3 days. Do you know how many soldiers were involved in that war?" "No, Ambassador. 12 million. And one human ended it. Not by killing them all, by killing exactly the right ones. By making it clear that no one was safe, that no bunker was deep enough, that no guard was strong enough." Talon's voice trembled. "They called him the Shadow of Earth. They said he was not a man, but a force of nature. A storm that chose its targets." He looked at Vela with ancient, frightened eyes. "The Valeth have awakened something they do not understand. And if we do not stop this, we may all burn in the fire that follows." Across the station, Lord Sithrak barricaded himself in the Valeth compound. 200 of his best warriors surrounded him. 30 warships were on their way to reinforce his position. He told himself he was not afraid. He told himself that one human could not threaten an empire. But when he closed his eyes, he saw that smile, that cold, terrible smile. And for the first time in his life, Lord Sithrak knew what it felt like to be prey. The countdown had begun. 24 hours until humanity received justice. Or 24 hours until the galaxy learned why humans were never meant to be underestimated. In his small room, Marcus Cole sat in the darkness. He held Sarah's badge in his hands. He thought about the 43 people who had trusted him, who had followed him to this place, who had died because he had not been strong enough to protect them. "I am sorry," he whispered to the darkness. "I should have seen it coming. I should have stopped it." The badge was cold in his hands. "But I will make this right. I promise you, I will make this right." He placed the badge on the table in front of him. Then he stood and walked to the window. The stars were cold and distant. Somewhere out there, Valeth warships were gathering. Somewhere out there, an empire was preparing for war. They thought they were hunting him. They were wrong. The hunt had already begun. And Death was wearing a suit. 18 hours remained on the countdown. Lord Sithrak sat in his command center, surrounded by screens showing every corner of the Valeth compound. 200 warriors patrolled the halls. Defense systems covered every entrance. The walls were thick enough to stop ship-mounted weapons. He had turned his section of the station into a fortress. "Let the human come," he told his generals. "We will crush him like the insect he is." But even as he spoke, something was happening that Sithrak did not understand. Marcus Cole had not fired a single shot. He had not killed anyone since the fight in the corridor. Instead, he was doing something far more dangerous. He was telling the truth. Across every communication channel in the galaxy, files began appearing. Secret files, encrypted files, files that the Valeth had hidden for centuries. The first wave revealed illegal weapons programs. The Valeth had been building planet-killer bombs in violation of every galactic treaty. The evidence was undeniable. Ship logs, construction records, test footage of entire moons being destroyed. The second wave was worse. Slave colonies. Millions of beings from conquered species, forced to work in Valeth mines and factories. Beings who officially did not exist. Beings who had been erased from every record. The third wave was worst of all. Assassinations. Council members who had opposed the Valeth over the years. Diplomats, scientists, leaders. All of them had died in accidents or natural causes. The files showed the truth. The Valeth had killed them all. Within 6 hours, the galaxy was burning with outrage. The Valeth's 3 closest allies announced they were ending their partnerships. Trade agreements were canceled. Ambassadors were recalled. Species that had feared the Valeth for generations suddenly found their voices. Within 12 hours, 2 Valeth colony worlds declared independence. Their governors had seen the files about the slave colonies. They refused to be part of such an empire any longer. Sithrak watched his dominion crumble on the screens around him. He could not understand how this was happening. Those files had been protected by the most advanced encryption in the galaxy. Only a handful of beings even knew they existed. How? He demanded. How did the human get these files? No one could answer him. The truth was simple but terrifying. Marcus Cole had spent 30 years learning secrets. He had walked through the most secure facilities in the galaxy. He had extracted information from beings who thought they could never be broken. He had built a network of contacts and sources that spread across 1,000 worlds. He had done all this as a weapon for humanity, a weapon that gathered information instead of firing bullets, a weapon that destroyed empires with truth instead of bombs. Now he was using everything he had learned, and the Valeth had no defense against it. Sithrak's generals came to him with reports of the hunt for Marcus Cole. Kill teams had been sent into the station to find him. None had returned. Security footage showed fragments of what happened to them, a shadow moving through corridors, weapons being disassembled, warriors falling unconscious without understanding what had hit them. Marcus never killed any of them. He left them alive. He left them with a message. Every fallen warrior was found with the same words written on the wall near them. Time remaining. The numbers counted down. 18, 15, 12, 9. Fear spread through the Valeth compound faster than any disease. Warriors who had faced death in 100 battles began jumping at shadows. They saw the human in every dark corner. They heard his footsteps in every silence. One veteran, a warrior named Krath, who had served for 50 years, tried to explain it to a younger soldier. I have fought many enemies, Krath said. Enemies who were stronger than me, faster than me, better armed than me. I was never afraid. Fear is for prey, not for warriors. He paused and his scales had turned pale. But this human is different. He is not fighting us. He is taking us apart, piece by piece. We cannot stop him. We cannot catch him. We cannot even see him until it is too late. The young soldier asked, "What do we do?" Krath had no answer. With 4 hours remaining, the Valeth fleet finally arrived. 30 warships, each one capable of destroying a small planet. They surrounded the station with enough firepower to end any threat. But they were not alone. 17 other species had sent their own vessels. They formed a blockade around the Valeth fleet, not to help the Valeth, not to fight them, just to watch. The commanders of those ships had all received the same message from Marcus Cole. Stay out of my way, and no harm will come to you. You have my word. They believed him. After seeing what he had done to the Valeth Dominion in just 20 hours, they believed every word. The Valeth fleet commander was named Admiral Vex. He was an old soldier, respected by his warriors, loyal to his empire. He had served Lord Sithrak for decades, but Admiral Vex had also seen the leaked files. He contacted Sithrak directly. My lord, I have read the evidence. The slave colonies, the assassinations. Is it true? Sithrak's face twisted with rage. It does not matter if it is true. What matters is that the human must die, that humanity must be punished. That is your duty, Admiral. Admiral Vex was silent for a long moment. My duty is to the Valeth people, he said finally, not to you. My lord, surrender yourself to the council. Face justice for what you have done. End this before it destroys us all. You dare to betray me? Sithrak screamed. I dare to save our people from your madness. Admiral Vex cut the communication. He then broadcast to the entire fleet, all ships, stand down. We will not fire on the station. We will not protect Lord Sithrak. Anyone who disagrees may leave the fleet now and face their own conscience. Not a single ship left. Sithrak threw his communicator against the wall. He screamed at his generals. He threatened. He promised rewards for anyone who would remain loyal. But his empire was falling around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. 1 hour remained. Sithrak made his final move. If he could not win through force, he would win through leverage. He ordered his warriors to capture hostages from the station. Diplomats, civilians, anyone they could find. They returned with 12 beings, representatives from neutral species. 3 of them were Karishi children who had been on a school tour of the station. Sithrak broadcast his ultimatum to the entire galaxy. The human will surrender himself to me within 1 hour. If he does not, these hostages will die, one by one, starting with the children. He held up a young Kirishi girl, barely old enough to speak. Her feathers trembled with fear. Do you understand, human? Come to me, alone, unarmed, or watch them die. In the shadows of the station, Marcus Cole watched the broadcast. His face showed nothing. His body was completely still. Then he closed his eyes. He thought of Sarah Chen. He thought of the 43 people who had died on the human ship. He thought of every life he had taken in 30 years of service. He thought of the Qureshi children, so young, so innocent, so afraid. When he opened his eyes, there was nothing in them except purpose. He had given the council a choice. They had not taken it. Sithric had not surrendered. Justice had not been served. Now there would be no more choices. Marcus began walking toward the Valeth compound. He did not try to hide. He did not take a weapon. He simply walked, one step at a time, through corridors that had become silent. Every being he passed stopped to watch him go. They saw a man in a torn suit walking towards certain death. They saw an old human with gray hair and tired eyes. They did not understand what they were really seeing. They were seeing death, wearing a suit, going to work. Vela, the Qureshi intelligence officer, watched him pass on a security monitor. She wanted to help him. She wanted to do something, anything, to change what was about to happen. But she knew there was nothing she could do. This was beyond politics, beyond diplomacy, beyond anything the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. This was one man against an empire, and somehow, impossibly, she found herself believing that one man was going to win. Marcus reached the main entrance of the Valeth compound. 200 warriors waited inside. Defense systems tracked his every move. Lord Sithrak watched on his screens, a cruel smile on his face. "He actually came," Sithrak laughed. "The fool actually came. Alone. Unarmed. Does he think he is invincible?" Marcus stood before the great doors. He did not try to open them. He simply waited. And then, all across the compound, the lights went out. In the darkness, something began. Something that would be remembered for generations. Something that would teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Never threaten humanity. Never harm the innocent. And never, ever make death angry. The darkness inside the Valeth compound was absolute. Every light had died at once. Every screen had gone black. Even the emergency systems had failed. 200 warriors stood in that darkness, weapons ready, eyes straining to see. They had trained for every possible situation. They had prepared for armies, for assassins, for every threat the galaxy could offer. They had not prepared for this. The first warrior fell without a sound. One moment he was standing. The next moment he was on the ground, unconscious, his weapon disassembled beside him. His companions did not notice. In the darkness, they could not see what had happened. The second warrior fell, then the third, then 5 more. By the time someone called out a warning, 20 warriors were already down. "Contact! We have contact!" A commander shouted. "Form defensive positions! Protect Lord Sithrak!" The warriors tried to organize. They activated personal lights on their armor. The beams cut through the darkness, revealing glimpses of the corridors around them. They saw nothing. Just empty hallways, just their fallen companions. And then for just a moment, they saw him. Marcus Cole moved through them like smoke. He was there, and then he was not. He struck, and warriors fell. His movements were precise, controlled, almost gentle. He did not slash or tear. He simply touched, and his targets collapsed. The nanomachines in his blood worked constantly, repairing damage, enhancing his senses, keeping his body operating beyond any normal human limit. His bones could withstand impacts that would shatter ordinary skeletons. His reflexes were faster than thought. But it was not the technology that made him terrifying. It was the skill behind it. 30 years of training, 30 years of experience, 30 years of becoming the perfect weapon. A Valeth veteran named Krath managed to swing his blade at Marcus. The human caught the blade with his bare hand. The metal edge could not cut his enhanced skin. Marcus looked at Krath for a moment, almost sadly, and then pressed 2 fingers against the warrior's neck. Krath fell. He was alive. Unconscious, but alive. Every warrior who surrendered was spared. Every warrior who dropped their weapon and knelt was left untouched. Marcus stepped around them and continued forward. But those who fought fell. Lord Sithrak watched on the few screens that still worked. He saw his warriors dropping one by one. He saw the human moving through his defenses like they did not exist. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." A general stood beside him. "My lord, we must evacuate. The escape pods—" "No!" Sithrak grabbed the general. I will not run from one human. Send more warriors, all of them. Now. The general hesitated. Then he gave the order. 50 more warriors rushed toward Marcus's position. They came from every direction at once. They fired their weapons. Plasma bolts filled the corridor with deadly light. Marcus was not there. He was among them. Moving, striking, dancing through the chaos like he could see every attack before it came. Plasma bolts missed him by centimeters. Blades cut empty air where he had been a heartbeat before. In 30 seconds, all 50 warriors were down. Security footage would later show that Marcus never moved faster than necessary. He never used more force than required. He was efficient, clinical, precise. One Valeth survivor later described it. We were not fighting a man. We were fighting a force of nature wearing a suit. He did not hate us. He did not enjoy hurting us. He simply moved through us like we were not there, like we were rain and he was the wind. Marcus reached the hostage chamber. The door was sealed with the strongest locks the Valeth possessed. He stood before it for a moment, studying the mechanism. Then he placed his palm against the door and pushed. The metal groaned. The locks shattered. The door fell inward. Inside, Lord Sithrak stood behind the hostages. He held a blade to the throat of the young Qureshi girl. His hand was trembling so badly the blade drew a thin line of blood. Stay back, Sithrak screamed. Stay back or she dies. I swear it. Marcus stopped. He looked at the hostages. 12 beings, 3 of them children, all of them terrified. Then he looked at Sithrak. The Valeth Lord had ruled an empire. He had commanded fleets. He had ordered the deaths of thousands without feeling. He had believed himself untouchable. Now he was using a child as a shield. Marcus spoke. His voice was soft, almost gentle, like a parent talking to a frightened child. Lord Sithrak, I have destroyed your empire. I have broken your fleet's loyalty. I have walked through your entire guard, 200 warriors. 43 of them are unconscious behind me, the same number as the humans you killed. He took one step forward, just one. This can end with you facing trial. You will live. You will answer for your crimes, but you will live. Another step, or it can end another way. Sithrak pressed the blade harder against the girl's throat. I will do it. I will kill her. Marcus stopped. He was close now, close enough to see the madness in Sithrak's eyes. Close enough to see the fear behind the madness. No, Marcus said quietly. You will not. How do you know? Marcus smiled. It was not a cold smile. It was not a cruel smile. It was a tired smile. The smile of a man who had seen too much darkness. Because I can see the truth in your eyes. You have done terrible things, Sithrak, but you have always had others do the actual killing. Your warriors, your assassins, your ships. You have never gotten blood on your own hands. He took another step forward. And you will not start now, not with a child, not while I am watching, because deep down, underneath all your pride and cruelty, you are afraid. You have always been afraid, and right now looking at me, you are more afraid than you have ever been in your life. Sithrak stared at Marcus. Their eyes met. Something in Sithrak broke. He dropped the blade. It clattered on the floor. He fell to his knees. His whole body was shaking. What are you? He whispered. What are you? Marcus walked past him and knelt beside the Qureshi girl. He gently wiped the blood from her neck. The wound was shallow. She would be fine. It is over, he told her softly. You are safe now, I promise. The girl looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. Then she saw something in his face. Something warm. Something human. She hugged him. Marcus held her for a moment. His eyes were closed. When he opened them, they were wet. Station security arrived minutes later. They found Lord Sithrak still kneeling on the floor, unresponsive to questions or commands. They found the hostages unharmed. They found 200 Valeth warriors scattered through the compound, all alive, none permanently injured. 43 of them unconscious, the same number as the humans who had died. The galaxy never forgot. The Galactic Council reconvened 2 days later. The vote on humanity's status was unanimous. Full membership, full rights. A formal apology was issued. The Valeth Dominion was placed under council supervision. Reforms were demanded. The slave colonies were freed. The weapons programs were dismantled. Lord Sithrak was tried for his crimes. He never recovered from whatever he saw in Marcus's eyes that night. Observers described him as hollow, empty, a shell of the proud lord he had once been. Marcus Cole was offered many things in the days that followed. Honors, medals, positions of power. He refused them all. He asked for only one thing, a small office on the station, a place to continue his work as a diplomat. The galaxy thought he was joking. He was not. A month after the incident, Vela, the Kirishi intelligence officer, visited his office. She found him at his desk, reading reports, a cup of tea growing cold beside him. On the wall behind him, in a simple frame, hung Sarah Chen's blood-stained diplomatic badge. "Ambassador," Vela said, "may I ask you something?" Marcus looked up. "Of course. What happens now? After everything you did, after everything the galaxy saw, what happens next?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. He looked at the badge on the wall. He thought about Sarah, about the 43, about all the people who had believed in a better future. "Now I go back to being a diplomat," he said finally. "That is what they would have wanted. That is what she believed in." Vela hesitated. Then she asked the question everyone in the galaxy wanted to know. "And if someone threatens humanity again?" Marcus smiled. It was a warm smile. But behind it, just for a moment, she saw something else. Something ancient and dangerous and patient. "Then I will have another conversation," he said. "I am very good at conversations." He straightened his suit. It was new, perfectly fitted, immaculate. "I am also very good at ending them." 100 years later, humanity became one of the most respected species in the Council. They were known for their diplomacy, their fairness, their willingness to help others. But every species taught their children one lesson. It was passed down from generation to generation. It was written in history books and whispered in stories. Never harm a human diplomat. Because you never know which one is death in a suit, and death remembers. Death always remembers. The end.